The Ritz-Carlton ballrooms sparkled with old money and new pretensions. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light over Silicon Valley's elite as they celebrated the Thompson Family Foundation's annual charity gala. Or rather, celebrated themselves under the guise of charity. I adjusted my Brioni tie, worth more than the cars most of these people drove, and watched my father-in-law, Richard Thompson, hold court near the Champagne Tower. His wife Margaret's diamond necklace caught the light as she laughed at some venture capitalist's joke. James. Richard's voice carried that particular tone of disdain he reserved just for me. The service entrance is that way. He gestured toward the kitchen doors. The staff tables are in the back. 5 years of marriage to his daughter Emma, and he still treated me like the nobody who'd stolen his princess. If only he knew. Actually, I have an invitation, I said quietly, showing the embossed card. He snatched it, frowning. This must be a mistake. Emma knows better than to dash. I'm her husband, Richard. We've been married 5 years. Yes, he smirked, and still working in, what was it again? Data entry. Close enough to the truth to maintain my cover, far enough to feed his contempt. I'd learned early on that the best way to hide was to let people believe what they wanted to see. The servers section is through those doors, he repeated, louder this time, drawing attention from nearby guests. We wouldn't want to confuse the help with the guests, would we? Emma appeared at his elbow, her face flushed with embarrassment. Dad, please dash. Now, darling, Margaret cut in, your father's right. James would be more comfortable with his own kind. I caught Emma's eye, giving her the slight nod we'd arranged. Time to play along one last time. Of course, I said, taking the server's entrance as directed. Behind me, I heard Richard's booming laugh. At least he knows his place. If he only knew his place in what was about to unfold. From the kitchen, I watched the gala through the service doors. Richard worked the room, bragging about Thompson Technologies' latest contracts, their expanding market share, their upcoming merger with Silicon Valley's biggest names. What he didn't know was that his company's success rested entirely on one client, Quantum Dynamics, the revolutionary AI firm that had transformed global technology. And tonight, Quantum's CEO was finally making their first public appearance. My phone buzzed, 2 minutes to announcement. I straightened my tie and smiled at the actual servers, who'd been quietly taking direction from me all evening. Every detail had been planned, every moment choreographed. Richard clinked his glass, calling for attention. Distinguished guests, as chairman of Thompson Technologies, I'm honored to announce our biggest partnership yet. Quantum Dynamics has chosen us to dash. Actually, a smooth voice interrupted, we should discuss that. Alexander Chin, Quantum's chief operating officer, stepped forward. I'd worked with Alex for years, though Richard had never bothered to learn who really ran the company he desperately wanted to impress. Where is your CEO? Richard asked, looking around the room. I was told they'd be here tonight. Oh, they are, Alex smiled, checking his watch. In fact, the main doors opened. Heads turned, expecting another Silicon Valley titan in an expensive suit. But there was only silence. I don't understand, Richard frowned. Where dash? Your CEO is already here, I said, stepping out of the service entrance. Has been all evening. The Champagne Tower trembled as Richard spun around, his face draining of color. No, he whispered. That's impossible. James Carter, Alex announced to the room, founder and CEO of Quantum Dynamics. The youngest CEO on the Fortune 500 and the mind behind the AI revolution that's transformed modern technology. The Champagne Tower crashed as Margaret's hand flew to her throat, sending crystal glasses cascading across the marble floor. The sound perfectly punctuated the moment of total silence that followed. Emma moved to my side, taking my hand. She'd known all along, had helped maintain my cover while I built Quantum from nothing into a global powerhouse. But you work in data entry, Richard stammered. You live in that tiny apartment. A cover, I replied calmly. One you were all too happy to believe. It's amazing how invisible you become when people think they're above you. Thompson Technologies contracts, he said, realization dawning. All those major projects were with my company. Every deal you bragged about, every contract you celebrated, they all came through me. While you were showing me to the service entrance, I was deciding your company's future. The room had gone completely still. Silicon Valley's elite stood frozen, watching the man they'd dismissed as a nobody reveal himself as the phantom CEO they'd all been desperate to meet. Now, I continued, about that merger you've been promising your shareholders. The silence in the ballroom crackled with tension as I moved toward the main stage, each step echoing against marble floors now littered with broken crystal. The merger, I continued, taking the microphone, needs some clarification. Alex, would you share the slides? The giant screens behind me flickered to life, displaying quantum dynamics global operations. Data centers in Dubai, research facilities in Tokyo, AI development hubs in Stockholm. The empire I'd built while Richard thought I was inputting spreadsheets. Flashback, 5 years earlier. I met Emma at a coffee shop near Thomson Technologies. She was hiding from her father's expectations behind a laptop, working on code that would later become part of Quantum's core architecture. Your algorithm, I said, peering at her screen. You're approaching the AI learning curve from the wrong angle. She looked up, surprised. You understand quantum computing? Enough to know that this, I sketched a different formula on a napkin, would work better. That napkin now hung framed in our secret penthouse office, next to Emma's original code. We were married 3 months later against her father's wishes. He'll never accept you, she warned. Good, I replied. That'll make it easier to hide in plain sight. We kept my growing company secret, using Richard's contempt as our perfect cover. The smaller he made me feel, the bigger Quantum grew. Present day. Quantum Dynamics, I announced to the stunned gala audience, has become the world's leading AI technology provider. Our market cap exceeded $300 billion last quarter. Richard gripped a chair for support. The man who'd spent 5 years treating me like a servant was watching his entire worldview shatter. But surely, Margaret sputtered, we would have known, the press. Would you? I clicked to the next slide. When you were so convinced I was nothing. When you seated me with servers and called me the help? The screens showed press coverage of Quantum's mysterious CEO, always in shadows, never photographed directly. Silicon Valley's biggest mystery, hiding behind carefully crafted anonymity. Thomson Technologies, I continued, has been a useful partner. But let's be clear about who works for whom. Alex stepped forward with a folder. The merger documents, as requested. Richard reached for them with trembling hands. But I thought, we were acquiring. No, Richard. Quantum is acquiring Thomson Technologies. The papers your board approved last week? They give us controlling interest. The crowd murmured. Several phones appeared, shareholders frantically checking stock prices. You see, I explained, while you were showing me to the service entrance, your board was signing control to the very person you thought was beneath you. Emma joined me on stage, her designer dress a far cry from the simple clothes she wore to family dinners. Dad, did you ever wonder how your small regional tech company suddenly landed contracts with global giants? You. He looked at her with dawning horror. You knew. I'm Quantum's chief technology officer, she said. Have been since before we married. James and I built this company together while you were busy being ashamed of him. The screens filled with Quantum's organizational chart. Emma's name near the top, alongside Alex and other executives Richard had desperately tried to impress at parties. All those meetings, Margaret whispered. When you said you were visiting friends. I was running a global technology company, Emma replied. One that now owns controlling interest in Thomson Technologies. I turned to the gathered executives and investors. For those wondering about their positions, don't worry. Quantum believes in merit-based leadership. Unlike some, we don't judge people by their social status or family connections. Richard's face had turned an interesting shade of gray. The apartment, that tiny one-bedroom where you live, is one of many properties we maintain for privacy, I explained. Our actual residence is the penthouse your real estate agent tried to sell you last month. The one you said only a real CEO could afford. The irony hung heavy in the air as Richard remembered his own words. Your office, he said weakly. That small cubicle when you visited Thomson Technologies. Was perfect for observing how you really treat people when you think they're beneath you. I smiled. Amazing what you can learn from a cubicle. The room had shifted now, power dynamics realigning as Silicon Valley's elite processed who I really was. The same people who'd ignored me all evening were suddenly finding reasons to move closer. The merger proceeds as planned, I announced. Though there will be some changes in leadership. I paused, looking directly at Richard. Starting at the top. The next morning, Thomson Technologies' lobby buzzed with nervous energy. Employees watched wide-eyed as I walked through the front doors, not to the small cubicle they were accustomed to seeing me occupy, but straight to the executive elevator. Richard's corner office offered a panoramic view of Silicon Valley. He sat behind his desk, looking somehow smaller without his usual arrogance. The board meeting starts in 10 minutes, I said, not bothering to knock. Ready to announce your retirement? He looked up, years of carefully constructed superiority crumbling. You planned this. All of it. From the beginning. Not exactly. I took the seat across from him, his seat soon enough. When I met Emma, I was already building Quantum. But you made hiding it remarkably easy. Your assumptions about me, your need to put me in my place. It was the perfect cover. The dinner parties, he said quietly. When we seated you in the kitchen. I was closing billion-dollar deals on my phone while your servers shared their coffee with me. Good people, by the way. They're all getting significant raises. Emma entered, tablet in hand. The shareholders are assembled. Dad? Mom's here too. The boardroom fell silent as we entered. Margaret sat rigid in her chair, her perfect society makeup unable to hide her sleepless night. The board members, Richard's carefully chosen cronies, shifted uncomfortably. Before we begin, I said, taking the chairman's position, let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, I'm the CEO of Quantum Dynamics. Yes, we now own controlling interest in Thomson Technologies. And yes, everything you thought you knew about the power dynamics in this room was wrong. Alex began distributing folders. Our first order of business is restructuring the board. We believe in diverse perspectives, not country club connections. You can't just. One of Richard's golf buddies started. Actually, we can. And we are. Emma pulled up the shareholding structure. Quantum owns 51% of voting shares. That's what those papers you signed last week actually meant. Richard stared at the table while his carefully constructed empire transformed. His board allies were replaced by tech innovators, diversity champions, and actual industry experts. As for the Thomson family, I continued, Richard will announce his retirement this afternoon. Margaret will step down from the foundation board. And the company name. You're erasing us completely? Margaret's voice trembled. No. Unlike you, we don't believe in erasing people. I clicked to the next slide. Thomson Quantum Technologies. A partnership if you're willing to earn it. The next hour outlined our vision. Merging Thomson's regional connections with Quantum's global innovation. Real charity work, not social posturing. Merit-based advancement, not family ties. And my position? Richard finally asked. Advisory board, Emma answered. If you can adapt to not being in charge. We're offering you a chance to be part of something bigger than your ego, Dad. As the board filed out, Margaret lingered. The foundation gala. You let us humiliate ourselves. You humiliated yourselves long before that, I replied. We just stopped protecting you from the consequences. The next few weeks transformed Thomson Technologies. The servants' entrance became a shared employee entrance for everyone. The executive dining room opened to all staff. Merit replaced nepotism in promotions. Real charitable initiatives replaced social photo ops. Richard struggled with his new reality. I'd catch him staring at my office, his old office, with a mix of resentment and dawning respect. 1 month after the gala, he appeared at my door. The coding program for underprivileged students. It was your idea? Emma's actually. She never forgot how you dismissed her interest in programming as unfeminine. He nodded slowly. I've been watching how you run things. It's not what I expected. Because I don't need to prove my worth through other people's humiliation. I deserve that, he admitted. And more. True. But this isn't about revenge, Richard. It's about building something better than what your pride created. The company newsletter that week featured our first joint project, a tech education center in the same neighborhood where I'd grown up. The photo showed Richard working alongside the maintenance staff he'd once ignored, setting up computers for local kids. Emma found me looking at the picture. He's trying, she said. I know. That's more than we expected. At that evening's board meeting, Richard sat quietly in his advisory role, taking notes instead of giving orders. Margaret had joined the foundation's actual charitable works, discovering she had a talent for connecting with people when she stopped ranking them by status. My phone buzzed with a message from Alex. Annual tech conference wants you as keynote speaker. Ready to go public officially? I looked around the boardroom. At Richard learning to listen. At Margaret learning to serve. At the company transforming from a symbol of privilege to a force for change. Schedule it, I replied. Time to step into the light. The next morning I drove my usual modest car to the office. The security guard, who'd once been instructed to direct me to the service parking, smiled and waved me to the CEO's spot. Still can't believe they never knew, he said. Sometimes, I replied, the best way to see people's true character is to let them think they're above you. In my office I found a handwritten note from Richard. I spent years looking down on you, never realizing I was the one who needed to rise. Thank you for showing me what real leadership looks like. Your father-in-law, if you'll still have me as one. I pinned it next to Emma's original code and the napkin where our journey began. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't in proving others wrong, but in giving them a chance to prove themselves better. The company announcement went out that afternoon. Thomson Quantum Technologies, building tomorrow together. Below the headline was a photo of the entire staff, executives, maintenance workers, security guards and cafeteria staff, all entering through the same door. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's transformation.